My brother secretly sold our late father's car for quick cash, so I bought it back, rebuilt it, and made sure everyone knew what he really did. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and after losing my dad 2 years ago, I tried to hold on to anything that reminded me of him. Grief changes people. It reshapes how you see the world, the silence, even the things left behind. For me, that one thing was his car, a faded blue 1972 Mustang we spent countless weekends working on together. It wasn't just metal and bolts. It was the sound of laughter in the driveway, the smell of oil and polish, the echo of his voice saying, "Son, anything worth keeping takes work." Dad wasn't a rich man, but he was proud, steady, and patient. Every dent in that car had a story. Every scratch had a memory. After he passed, the garage became a shrine. I'd sit in the driver's seat some nights, hands on the wheel, pretending he was still beside me. The hum of the city outside always faded the moment I closed my eyes and remembered his calm, firm voice, teaching me how to live with integrity. Then there's Nate, my younger brother. He's everything I'm not: charming, impulsive, and allergic to responsibility. He loved Dad, sure, but in his own detached way: fast money, fast thrills, and faster excuses. While I handled the bills and checked in on Mom, Nate was out networking, which usually meant chasing schemes that never worked out. Still, I tried to keep peace. Losing Dad fractured us enough already, and I didn't want to make it worse. I told myself the car would anchor us, remind us both where we came from. But lately, I've noticed Nate eyeing that garage a little too long. Sometimes he'd joke about how much the Mustang might be worth. These days, I'd laugh it off, never realizing how far he'd actually go. That car wasn't just Dad's. It was the last living part of him. And soon, I'd learn how easily sacred things can be taken away. After Dad's funeral, the house felt emptier than ever. Mom stayed quiet most days, her energy focused on keeping herself busy, gardening, watching old movies, pretending everything was fine. I visited her every weekend, helped with groceries, fixed the leaky sink, anything to make sure she didn't feel alone. But Nate, he dropped by only when he needed something. One evening, Mom made her famous roast, hoping to bring us together again. The table looked the same as it did when Dad was alive. 3 plates, 1 seat forever missing. Nate showed up late, phone in hand, talking about a great business opportunity that just needed a bit of quick cash. He said it like it was a miracle waiting to happen. "Maybe you should slow down a little," I said, trying to sound calm. "Not everything's about money." He rolled his eyes. "That's easy for you to say, man. You've got your steady job, your routines, your boring peace." He took a sip of beer, smirking. Meanwhile, I'm out here trying to make something of myself. Mom tried to diffuse it with her soft voice. "Let's not fight, boys." But I could feel the wall growing between us. He was restless, bitter, always comparing. Then he looked over at the garage window. "That old car still sitting there? You ever think maybe Dad would have wanted us to do something useful with it?" My fork froze midair. "It's not for sale," I said quietly. "It's all I have left of him." He chuckled, but his eyes were cold. "Yeah, well, memories don't pay bills." The room went silent except for the clock ticking on the wall. Mom's hands trembled as she poured more gravy just to fill the silence. I tried to shake it off, but something about the way Nate said it, so casual, so certain, left a knot in my chest. I didn't know it yet, but that dinner marked the beginning of something I'd never be able to undo. A week later, I pulled into Mom's driveway and instantly felt something was wrong. The air felt heavier, too still. Usually I'd hear the faint creak of the garage door when I parked, Dad's old Mustang waiting quietly behind it, like a faithful ghost. But this time, the silence hit me first, then the emptiness. The garage door was wide open. The space where the car used to sit was nothing but oil stains and dust outlines. I stood there for a full minute, thinking maybe Mom had someone service it. My chest tightened as my mind started racing. Where could it be? I ran inside. "Mom, did you move Dad's car?" She looked up from the couch, startled. "No, honey, I thought you did. Nate said you told him to handle it." My stomach dropped. "Handle what?" "He said you finally agreed to sell it," she said softly, confusion in her eyes. My pulse started hammering. I pulled out my phone and called Nate, straight to voicemail. I texted him, "Where's the car? Tell me you didn't touch it." No reply. I called again. Nothing. That night, I barely slept. Every hour I'd check my phone, waiting for a message, an explanation, anything that made sense. Instead, around 3 a.m., my buddy Chris sent a screenshot. It was a local used car dealership post. The photo showed a familiar blue Mustang, listed for sale. My heart sank. "Nate sold it," Chris wrote. "Saw him arguing with the dealer earlier. Guess he needed cash." I just sat there staring at the picture, my hands shaking. That car wasn't just metal. It was memories, promises, everything Dad had left me. In that moment, something inside me cracked. I didn't know what hurt more, that Nate sold it, or that he did it so easily. And I knew. This wasn't just betrayal. It was war. By morning, my anger had gone from disbelief to something sharp and steady. I drove straight to Nate's apartment, the kind of place that always smelled like cheap beer and broken plans. He opened the door with that same cocky half smile, like nothing was wrong. "Hey man, you look like hell," he said, stepping aside. "Where's the car?" My voice came out low, shaking. He hesitated for half a second, then shrugged. "Relax. It's just a car. I sold it. Got a decent deal, too." The words hit harder than I expected. "You sold Dad's car? Without even asking me?" He rolled his eyes, reaching for a beer. "You're overreacting. It was just sitting there collecting dust. I needed money, and Mom could use the space." "Don't drag Mom into this," I snapped. "That car was his. You had no right." Nate laughed bitterly. "Right? You think Dad left everything to you? You think you're the saint here just because you stayed home and played mechanic?" For a moment, neither of us spoke. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. The room smelled like cigarettes and resentment. "I kept that car because it meant something," I said quietly. "You can't put a price on what it represented." He took a long sip, looking away. "Maybe you care too much about dead things." That line broke something in me. I stepped closer, trembling, not from fear, but fury. "You don't get it, do you? That car was the last piece of Dad we had." Nate didn't respond. He just stared past me, jaw tight, eyes cold. I left before I did something I'd regret, slamming the door behind me. But as I drove home, one thought burned in my mind. I wasn't letting this go. He might have sold the car, but I was going to get it back, no matter the cost. For days, I couldn't focus on anything else. Work became background noise, emails unread, phone calls ignored. Every spare minute was spent digging for leads. I called every used car lot within 100 miles, describing the blue Mustang down to the scratches on its left fender. Most had no clue what I was talking about. A few promised to call if anything popped up, but I knew better. No one cared like I did. At night, I sat at my desk scrolling through online listings, eyes burning from the glow of my laptop screen. Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, obscure auction sites. I searched them all. I even joined classic car forums, posting the VIN number and begging for info. Every reply that wasn't it felt like another punch in the gut. One night, around 2 a.m., I found it. The photo wasn't perfect. The paint looked duller, one headlight cracked, but I knew that car anywhere. The post read, 1972. Mustang, recently acquired, minor repairs needed. My hands trembled as I read the location, 2 towns over. The next morning, I drove there without even showering. The dealership was small, more of a garage than a showroom. A middle-aged mechanic wiped his hands on a rag as I walked up. "You looking for the Mustang?" he asked, like he already knew. "Yeah," I said, my throat tight. "I think it used to belong to my dad." He studied me for a second, then nodded slowly. "Beautiful piece of work. Guy sold it dirt cheap. Said he was in a hurry." My stomach twisted. "How much are you asking?" He hesitated. 12 grand. It was nearly double what it was worth, but I didn't even flinch. I didn't care about money anymore. I just wanted what was mine. "I'll take it," I said quietly. No questions, no haggling. As I handed him the down payment, I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. The car was coming home, but the story wasn't over. Something told me this wasn't the end of what Nate had done. When I came back a few days later to finalize the paperwork, the mechanic, his name was Bill, met me at the entrance, wiping grease from his hands. "You really care about this car, huh?" he said with a knowing smile. "It was my dad's," I replied, running my hand along the hood. "We built it together. Every piece of it means something." Bill hesitated, then sighed. "There's something you should probably know." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He opened the driver's door, motioning for me to look inside. "When I bought it off your brother, it was stripped. Missing key parts. I figured you knew." My stomach dropped. "Stripped? What parts?" "The steering wheel, the original shift knob, even the custom toolkit from the trunk. Someone took them before I got it." He looked genuinely uncomfortable. "And there was an empty frame in the glove compartment, probably used to hold a picture." My chest felt tight. The engraved steering wheel had my dad's initials burned into it. The toolkit had been his pride and joy. And the photo? It was the one of us standing beside the car the day we finished it. "Nate?" I muttered under my breath. "He took them." Bill frowned. "Yeah, the guy seemed jumpy. Told me not to ask questions. Just wanted fast cash." I ran a hand through my hair, heart pounding with a mixture of grief and fury. "He sold the car and pawned the memories." Bill nodded solemnly. "You want me to help you track down the parts? I know some collectors." I shook my head. "No, I'll handle it." Driving the car home later felt hollow. The engine roared like it used to, but something inside me was gone. I wasn't just rebuilding a car now. I was rebuilding what Nate had destroyed. And this time, I wasn't doing it for nostalgia. I was doing it for justice. The first night I parked the Mustang back in Dad's old garage, it felt both sacred and haunting. The space smelled the same, faint gasoline, dust, and the lingering echo of his cologne. But the air carried a weight I'd never felt before. I sat behind the wheel, staring at the empty space where the engraved steering wheel should have been. My reflection in the cracked windshield looked like a stranger, angry, tired, hollow. That night, I made a promise. I would rebuild every inch of this car myself, just like Dad taught me. Not for Nate, not even for Mom. For Dad, and for the part of me that still believed in doing the right thing. I started small, fixing the wiring, sanding rust from the fenders, restitching the torn leather seats. My hands were blistered by the third day, but I didn't stop. I played Dad's old records while I worked. Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles. his voice echoing in my memory. Patience, son. Don't rush the process. Every bolt tells a story. Sometimes I'd catch myself talking to him out loud. You'd be laughing right now, wouldn't you, old man? I whispered one night, tightening a screw. Can't believe your idiot sons are still fighting over your legacy. It was exhausting, but every scrape, every smear of grease, felt like therapy. Slowly, the car began to resemble what it once was, a symbol of endurance, not loss. Mom would peek in sometimes, her voice soft. You look more at peace in here than anywhere else. I'd smile faintly. It's the only place that still feels like home. But even as the car came back to life, I couldn't shake the bitterness. Nate had taken more than metal. He'd taken trust. And I had no idea what would happen when he finally saw what I'd done. As weeks passed, I noticed Nate's name coming up more often, but never for good reasons. Mom would mention how he'd stopped answering her calls, how his landlord came by looking for overdue rent. It didn't surprise me. Nate always thought charm could outpace consequences. But now, his great opportunities had dried up, and everyone was starting to see him for who he really was. Meanwhile, the Mustang was nearly done. Fresh paint gleamed under the flickering garage light, deep blue, like the day Dad first drove it home. I'd spent hours polishing the chrome, replacing the missing parts one by one, even found a replica steering wheel online. It wasn't the same as Dad's, but it fit, solid, steady, like a second chance. One afternoon, as I was tightening the final bolts, I heard tires crunch on the gravel. Nate's car. My chest tightened. He walked up the driveway, hands in his pockets, looking thinner, older, like life had caught up to him. Nice ride, he muttered, forcing a smirk. Didn't think you'd actually get it back. I kept my voice even. It's amazing what a little hard work can do. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. So what now? You gonna rub it in my face? Make me look like the villain? I straightened up, wiping grease from my hands. You did that yourself. His jaw tightened. You don't understand. I needed the money. You've always had things easy. I stepped closer, my tone low. Easy? You think losing Dad, watching you sell off the last piece of him, that's easy? He said nothing. Just stared at the car, eyes dark with something between regret and resentment. As he turned to leave, I realized something. He wasn't just jealous of the car. He was jealous that I'd managed to rebuild what he'd destroyed, and I had a feeling that truth was about to eat him alive. I thought seeing the car might humble Nate, maybe spark a little guilt. Instead, it lit a fuse. A week later, Mom called me in tears. He came by, she said, her voice trembling. He was shouting, said you're turning everyone against him. He even brought up your father. I felt my chest tighten. What did he say about Dad? She hesitated. That Dad always loved you more, that you were his favorite. That line hit harder than I expected. I could hear Dad's voice in my memory, telling us he loved us both the same. But Nate never believed that. Maybe he never forgave Dad, or me, for being the one who stayed, who didn't fall apart. Later that night, Nate showed up at my house. No warning, just headlights flashing through the living room window. He stumbled out of his car, eyes glassy, breath reeking of alcohol. You think you're better than me, huh? He yelled from the driveway. You think fixing that car fixes everything? I stepped outside slowly. Go home, Nate. You're drunk. Dad's gone because of you, he slurred. You made him work himself to death trying to make you proud. My stomach dropped. That's not true. He took a step closer, tears streaming down his face. You took everything from me, even his car. I stood there frozen, watching my brother crumble. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. He wasn't my rival. He was broken. When he finally drove off, tires screeching, I sank to the porch steps, trembling. The night air was cold, the sound of the engine fading into the distance like a memory I couldn't catch. For the first time, I wondered if revenge had blinded me. I'd spent so long fighting for Dad's legacy, I hadn't realized how much of my brother I'd already lost. But I didn't know then. Rock bottom wasn't just mine. Nate's was still coming, and it would change everything. A few weeks later, Mom called again, her tone unusually hopeful. "We're having a little barbecue this weekend," she said softly. "It's time we stop fighting, don't you think? Your father would have wanted that." I hesitated, staring at the Mustang through the kitchen window. Its paint gleamed in the sunlight, calm, complete, untouchable. "All right," I said finally. "I'll come." The backyard looked just like it used to. The grill was smoking, cousins chatting, old music floating through the air. For a moment, it almost felt normal again, until I saw Nate at the far end of the yard, beer in hand, avoiding eye contact. His clothes were wrinkled, his face tired, but Mom's smile when she saw us both under the same sky was enough to keep me there. After dinner, someone asked about the car. "Didn't your dad have that old Mustang?" Uncle Ron said. "I heard it's back on the road." Every conversation stopped. Nate stiffened. I didn't plan to say anything, but silence has a way of demanding truth. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I bought it back, after it was sold." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Mom looked confused. Nate's hand clenched around his drink. "You didn't have to say that," he muttered. "But it's the truth," I replied. "I didn't sell it. I fixed it. I brought it home." People looked between us, connecting dots that couldn't be undone. The backyard air felt heavy, the sound of cicadas suddenly too loud. Nate's voice cracked. "You think you're some kind of hero, huh? You think that makes you better than me?" I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The truth had already spoken louder than either of us ever could. And for the first time, Nate wasn't the charming one. He was exposed, standing in the wreckage of his own choices, and everyone finally saw it. After that barbecue, nothing in the family felt the same. The silence that followed was worse than any argument. Calls stopped. Group chats went quiet. Even Mom, who usually smoothed everything over, didn't know what to say. She loved us both, but now she finally saw the truth. The son who kept things together, and the one who tore them apart. Word spread quickly. Relatives started whispering behind Nate's back, how he'd sold the car for cash, how I'd bought it back out of pocket. The story took on a life of its own, twisting through family gossip and Sunday dinners. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Every whisper was its own kind of justice. A week later, Nate came by. No yelling this time, no swagger. He just stood in the driveway, hands shoved deep in his pockets. His voice was quiet. "You happy now? Everyone thinks I'm a thief." I sighed, wiping grease off my hands. "You did that, Nate." "I didn't." He scoffed, eyes red. "You could have kept your mouth shut." "I didn't expose you," I said calmly. The truth just came out. Maybe it was time. He laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "You always win, don't you?" "No, Nate," I said softly. "There's no winning here. We both lost something Dad would have hated to see us destroy." He didn't reply. He just looked past me, at the car gleaming under the sunlight, his reflection warped in the chrome. Then he turned and walked away. That night, I sat in the driver's seat again. For the first time, the engine purred without anger in my chest. There was no victory in it, just peace. But even peace carries weight. And deep down, I knew the final chapter between Nate and me hadn't been written yet. Months passed before I heard from Nate again. Life had gone quiet, peaceful, but heavy. with the kind of silence that comes after a storm. I spent most weekends driving the Mustang, the engine humming like it was alive again. Every mile felt like breathing new air, like reclaiming something I thought I'd lost forever. One Saturday, I drove to the lake where Dad used to take us fishing. The water shimmered gold under the evening sun, and the same wooden dock still creaked beneath my boots. I parked the car by the shore, turned off the engine, and just listened to the wind, the water, the faint echo of Dad's laugh in my memory. I opened the glove compartment and pulled out the old photo I'd managed to reprint. The three of us standing beside the car. Greasy hands, wide smiles, sunlight in our eyes. I set it back into its frame and placed it on the dashboard. "It's home again, Dad," I whispered. "You can rest now." As I sat there, my phone buzzed. A message from Nate. Just 2 words. "I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long time. No explanations, no excuses, just those words. And somehow, it was enough. I didn't reply, but for the first time in years, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt lighter. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky orange and violet. I turned the key, and the engine came alive, steady, confident, just like the man who'd built it. As the wheels rolled over the gravel, I realized this wasn't about revenge or pride. It was about honoring what truly mattered: family, forgiveness, and the strength to rebuild what was broken. I drove off into the fading light, the hum of the Mustang merging with the quiet of the lake behind me. For the first time since Dad's passing, I felt at peace, and I knew he'd be proud of how the story ended.